It's about to go down as we have multiple updates on the Carey Price trade situation, with this whole scenario coming to a head as his bonus is paid tomorrow. NHL sources revealed multiple very interesting quotes about not only Carey Price, where he could be going, the destinations, but also how it sets up Montreal and how they've been keeping tabs on other things around the league. We have to dive into these incredible quotes. Plus, TSN's Travis Yost went into detail about a couple of names that Montreal should very well be considering once this Price scenario is over. Trade talk out the wazoo here, all coming up on this episode. And look, we'll start with Carey Price because it's something we've talked about a lot. I talked about yesterday. Not going to bore you with the specifics that we've already gone over, but I'll do a high-level overview. He's owed $2 million for the season, and he gets his $5.5 million signing bonus tomorrow on September 1st, and his cap hits $10.5. So whatever team has him on their books, in their cap table, it's $10.5 million. After Montreal pays this $5.5 million signing bonus, if we trade him to a new team, they only actually owe him $2 million. So it's not much out of their actual books. It'd just be more on their cap table for that year, which is why there's certain teams that we'll get into in a little bit that could very well fit him under the cap. And Montreal, we are $6 million over the cap. So as soon as we move off of Carey Price, we'll have $4.5 million in cap space to work with. And in yesterday's video, we talked about how there's a lot of people saying, hey, it's going to happen after that bonus is paid, eventually it's going to go down. But some recent quotes have made it seem like it's probably coming sooner than we thought. And we have this one, an NHL source via archie.org. Now, this article is linked down below, so please go check it out for all the original quotes. But they said, I've heard Price's contract being in play for a while. Things should shake loose as of September 1st or soon after. I can't see the Canadiens going into the season with that anchor on their salary cap. And there's multiple reasons why you don't want to have to put Price on LTIR. The one I always talk about is the fact that you can accrue cap space throughout the season. Like, if you put him on LTIR, you'll still clear that money off the books, but that money can't accrue during the season, which means like at trade deadline, you still, like if you have $4 million cap space at the start of the season, you can only fit a player with a $4 million AAV at the deadline. Whereas if you can't accrue the space, say you get rid of Price, you can fit a player with a much higher cap hit because most of it would have been paid. But there's other stuff too, like for example, your young players, if they get performance bonuses, but you have Price on LTIR, those bonuses by the end of the season, they'll actually hit as a penalty for the next year. So there's a bunch of different reasons why you don't want him on the roster. And this is why we're seeing all of these quotes come out recently, including this one here that I found very intriguing. Said, I haven't heard anything imminent with a top 6 center training camp set to start in a few weeks, but I have heard that they're monitoring a few situations in case teams have a change of heart between now and the December roster freeze. And change of heart is one thing. I mean, we've talked about this a lot here on the show, the fact that even Montreal, like, we don't know how all of our players are going to fare come the regular season. Will Kirby Dach be good to go at the 2C come, December roster freeze time? Will Mike Matheson be proving his worth? Is he's going to be worth keeping around? We don't know. I still think he'll probably get moved. The Xhekaj versus Struble situation versus Reinbacher versus Engstrom. How is that going to play out, right? There's so many questions. Teams won't have those solid answers until a little bit into the season. So while there could very well not be a big trade for another center, like tomorrow, it might not be like, boom, Price, boom, trade for a center. Something very well could happen, and Montreal has been keeping tabs, which is huge. And they also, a different NHL source said, I've heard the Canadiens would move Price's contract to help line up another trade. It's simply a question of when, and the market will dictate that. And I think that's about the best way you can put it, because like I said, the market has been bone dry in August. It has been so dry. I actually read someone else wrote bone dry. That came to my head probably because I read it from someone else. Might even been in that article, but it has been. Like, there have been no trades. Basically, there's been nothing. Last year we had offer sheets. I think like 8 trades last August. Montreal themselves made that line A trade, but right now it's been quiet. Because we know for Montreal, the Carey Price thing was something that we're waiting for all off season long. And this is going to happen this week, whether it is tomorrow or the day after. Wouldn't shock me if Montreal had something lined up. And actually, in this RG.org article as well, Marco D'Amico mentions, and like we've talked about on the show before, there's a couple of teams that in particular have been linked. Like, the two that I see the most are San Jose and Chicago. And Chicago is, we're actually going to get into a Chicago player in just a second, but they're the team that, like, it would make some sense. They're looking to move off of some veteran defensemen. There's a certain center on their team that could be moved off of. We'll have to wait and see, but San Jose just seems to make the most sense. They have a lot of great young talent, and, even though Price probably wouldn't be really around the organization, it would be a paper move. Like, you never know. Having that name on your team is kind of interesting, and they need to get up in the cap a little bit. They have the space, and maybe Montreal could attach a late round pick to make it work. So these are the teams we're looking at. We're looking at Chicago, we're looking at San Jose, and something is probably going to happen. But when this does happen, again, it just opens the floodgates, something we keep talking about. But more recently, we've been starting to speculate, who are these centers that Montreal could go after? Because we heard yesterday from JC Lajoie, we saw today from this NHL source, it's like, Montreal's been keeping an eye on the market, and who could we really be eyeing? Well, one of the names that came up from Travis Yost, and it was on Tony Marinaro's podcast, he said, Jason Dickinson. Now, this is not going to be a playoff team in Chicago. Does Jason Dickinson make a ton of sense for the Blackhawks long term? I think it's an interesting question. He's definitely a capable third-line center. He immediately improves Montreal if he comes to Montreal. And Jason Dickinson is an interesting name. I'm not so sold on this. Look, the stats are not going to blow you off the page, but he is a very solid player defensively, and he's been around the league for a while. I think he absolutely is a positive. I mean, I know those numbers don't jump off the page. They really don't inspire confidence offensively. Like, we did just bring in Joe Veleno as a center as well. But Jason Dickinson, I think he could slot into the lineup. I just wonder if that actually makes a ton of sense. Does that actually solve a big problem for Montreal? Even if he could play 3 or 4C, I feel like Jake Evans also plays a defensive 3 or 4C, while also getting more offensive output. So Dickinson's one of these names that, again, he's in the last year of his deal, $4.25 million. To me, this is something that doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's a name that, again, Chicago's going to have to move off of some guys, and maybe this works within the Price contract, and this would actually fit within Montreal's cap. And look, he can play third center, he can play fourth center. Maybe Joe Veleno is not ready. I don't know. I'm not so much sold on Jason Dickinson, but again, keeping your mind open on this is definitely worth doing. I still think, though, if Montreal is making a trade for a center, it is not going to be for a guy like Jason Dickinson. There is absolutely no reason for that. The whole point is we want a center that's going to be right there at the top of the lineup to provide us a ton of depth. Defensive centers, yeah, they're valuable, but I don't necessarily think that's actually going to really improve Montreal right away. However, another name that Travis mentioned is a guy that we've talked about on the show before, and that's Pavel Zacha. Now, Pavel Zacha would be a very interesting name. They've got him and Lindholm down the middle right now, and there was also talk, like we mentioned on the show a number of weeks back, Casey Mittelstadt is another guy who's probably looking for a new home other than Boston. Now, he's bounced around a lot as well. He's played a little less center than Pavel Zacha, but Zacha, the big thing with him is not only does he have the offensive production, he had back-to-back near 60-point seasons before this year, he's also unreal on the face-off dot. We're talking 55% on the dot, which is something Montreal lacks. It lacks a really good face-off guy. Our best guys are Nick Suzuki and Jake Evans, who are just a hair above 50%. Not bad by any means. It's not like all these guys are sub 50, but some of our guys are. Like Kirby Dach on his career is low 40s. Newhook has had stretches where he's in the mid 40s. Don't really know. A guy like Veleno, again, mid 40s. So Evans and Suzuki are really those guys around 50. Maybe Kaiden and maybe Beck, if we'll have to see. But Zacha is one of these guys that's a proven point getter. He's a big body, 6'3", and he's a proven face-off guy, and his contract really isn't bad. It's not that much more than Jason Dickinson, and would also very well fit under the Habs cap. They can make that work after moving off of the Price contract. Now, this actually has him at 6'4", 207 on Puckpedia versus 6'3" on other websites, but he's got 2 years left, so it's a guy we've mentioned a lot, but I think that this actually does make some sense. However, my big thing with all this, the caveat, is that I'm starting to feel less and less like a move for a guy like Zacha is going to come before we see what Kirby Dach can do. We'll play the Kirby animation because it's always fun. Because once we see how Kirby fares this season, I think that will answer a lot of these questions. And that goes right back to this quote that we were talking about earlier. The market will dictate that. It's simply a question of when, and the market will dictate that. And there's a few situations where teams have a change of heart between now and the roster freeze, because so many teams are going to be in that same situation. Like if Boston is reeling, they're dead last in the Atlantic by a lot, and Montreal is like Kirby Dach, he got back healthy, but he's just not rolling, that makes that kind of trade a little more likely. So Well, all that to be said, like, I don't think we're gonna see bang bang 2 trades pop off tomorrow on September 1st, or maybe even 1st and 2nd. What I will say though is that we'll start to hear rumors picking up, because now that Montreal can officially move off of this Price contract, it opens up so many doors, and I am really excited to see it. Let me know your thoughts on all this down below. It's an exciting time. The season's right around the corner. I feel like I say this every video, but I am beyond hyped. Leave your thoughts on all this down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in every single day, and we'll be right here as soon as those trades break. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.